So I just wanted to say congratulations on the film. I
Thank you.
really enjoyed it. It was
Thank you.
really great. One of my favourite things about it was how the monsters were treated like real animals with like real behavioural traits and personalities. And I was wondering if you took direct inspiration from like actual nature when it came to sort of planning that stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, I love animals. I would watch Godzilla movies, the old ones, and nature specials in the same afternoon. And I've had so many different kinds of strange pets, from snakes to different kinds of fish and frogs. I love the way animals interact with each other. And so I would work with my animators, my sound designers, and we would watch, different kinds of animals fight, or record the different sound effects that they make. Like, it was important to me that the monsters in this movie feel like a combination of actual living, breathing animals, but also almost a quiet human quality to them. So they felt like fully rounded characters and not just giant monsters.
And was there anything for King Ghidorah specifically, a specific animal? Because there's nothing like him. There's an obvious counterpart, the three-headed dragon. Was there any particular animal that you did use for him?
Yeah, he's kind of a combination. There's a lot of king cobra in him, in his design, his scales, but also the way that the heads move with each other. So king cobras, other kinds of snakes, anacondas, because they're very powerful, muscular snakes. And then even with his tails, there were rattlesnakes, both with the sound and the behavior of the tails. And then also looked at the way that bats moved for the wings.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. There was one moment in the film that like gave me legitimate goosebumps, where you play the original Godzilla theme. And I was wondering if that was always part of the plan when you were shooting, or was that a late addition?
Always part of the plan. I love the classic Godzilla themes, both his, Mothra's theme. They're a good counterpart to each other. Mothra's theme being very sort of mystical and gentle and strangely reassuring, and then Godzilla's being very powerful, dominant, and warlike. So they sort of have a nice yin-yang relationship with each other. But they're iconic to me. Like, those themes are just as iconic as Star Wars and James Bond, even Jaws. So worked very closely with Bear McCreary, the composer, about securing the rights, but then also updating them, modernizing them in a way that they felt fresh to new ears, but also familiar to classic fans.
And one of the biggest differences, I thought, between this and Gareth Edwards' film is that this one makes use of very vivid colours. What motivated the change there?
Well, I loved what Gareth did in the first film, especially the way that he made it feel like a very grounded, gritty science fiction movie. It felt like the Godzilla movie you might see if you looked outside the window and saw him. Yeah. At the same time, I realized that because we were bringing in Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah, we were venturing away from science fiction and more into science fantasy. You bring in a three-headed dragon and a giant glowing moth, you have to be willing to sort of embrace the absurdity, for lack of a better word, the fantasy of it. And to me, that meant creating the opportunity for color, to really embrace the sort of dynamic powers that these creatures have and the way that they can directly and indirectly affect their environment. So the moment you decide and commit to a giant prehistoric pteranodon, essentially, crawling out of a volcano, that moment is going to demand fire and smoke, and also sort of embracing the almost biblical, apocalyptic nature of the film.
The other thing that I really liked was the way that you kind of mix between shooting action, like at the ground level with the people, and then sort of wider shots. How do you strike the balance between making it immersive like that, and then also making sure that people can see the whole thing?
I really sort of took my cues from the classic movies. The reaction shots, obviously, to help convey the emotional states of the human characters in the middle of all this chaos. And then Toho movies did such a great job at really letting the camera go wide whenever possible to sense the scale of these creatures. You would get very claustrophobic if you rely too much on close-ups or medium shots, and it really helps sort of almost set up the gunslinger kind of relationship between Godzilla and Ghidorah.